Welcome to JHart Modelworks. We've got the engine and chassis done, and now we're moving on to the body on the Revell Dodge Viper Convertible. Welcome to my workbench. Let's get started. To get started on prepping the body, we're going to scribe out all the panel lines and get them nice and deep so that they'll hold plenty of paint and clear without filling up. As usual, we're using the Tamiya engraving tool with the 0.2mm bit. Like most Tamiya tools, it's a little expensive, but it does a great job on these panel lines. It doesn't take a lot of scribing, usually 3 or 4 passes in each direction should do the trick. Once the panel lines are scribed out, I like to hit them with some Tamiya panel line accent color. If I've jumped out of the lines or scratched the body anywhere, this will quickly show me where, so I can fill and sand those areas and clean them back up. While the Tamiya engraver is a great panel line scriber, its hook design is intended for long straight lines and large wide curves. It's really not that good in these small tight areas or the sharp curves like these door handles or the fuel cap. For these, I'm using a new scriber, the Gum Primer Grita. Its needle tip design does a much better job here. I'll be doing a video review on this scriber very soon. Now, it's not replacing my Tamiya scriber for everything, but it definitely has a valid place in the toolbox. There's not a ton of mold lines on the body, but they go through some terrible places to try and sand, especially on the back where these mold seams run right through the taillights. Now we do want to mark all the seams off with a Sharpie marker, and when marking them we want to make sure we get marker on both sides of the mold line. Once we have them all marked, we can sand them away with our sanding sticks and sponge sanders. Once all the marker is gone, the mold seams should be gone as well. Still doesn't hurt to give it the old fingernail check though, just to make sure. These mold seams on the rear are going to be a little difficult. We're going to start with our display sponge sanders to try and get them as clean as we can. Then we're going to finish them off with a UMP thinny sponge sander, as its softer sponge surface will follow the contour of the body better and help us get a cleaner result. Once that's done, we're going to use the thinnest display sponge sander we have to try and get into all these little nooks and crannies and try to get them cleaned up. Next, we want to remove the retaining frame that is attached to the windshield frame and the body. We're going to carefully cut it off using our display sprue nippers, and then we're going to follow that up with the hobby knife to clean up the bulk of the edges. This way there's going to be less sanding to do to clean up the windshield frame. We want to be very careful when we're holding the kit by or working with the windshield frame so as not to break it. It's really delicate. I prefer to hold the body, but keep a finger or a thumb on the frame near where I'm sanding to reduce vibration and relieve pressure off the thin frame. With the panel lines and the mold seams done, our next step is to lightly sand the whole body down with some 3000 grit Tamiya sponge. We aren't trying to sand hard enough to remove any details, we just want to sand the entire surface to remove the shine from the plastic and give the whole surface a slightly rough, dull texture. This is called keying the body. And why we're doing this is it's putting thousands of microscopic little scratches in the body so the primer will have a nice rough surface for better hold. We're going to be doing some masking for the stripes later, and the last thing we want to do is pull off a chunk of paint and primer when we remove the masking tape. Once the body is keyed, I'm going to give the body 2 wipe downs. The first is going to be with some odorless mineral spirits to remove any excess panel liner. Then I'm going to wipe the whole body down again with some UMP airbrush cleaner. You can also use isopropyl alcohol for this. The second wipe down is to get any contaminants such as the odorless mineral spirits, marker lines, any oils or fingerprints from our hands, anything like that off the body so we have a nice clean surface for our primer. This is our hood. The slats are open, but they could be a bit cleaner. We're going to start with the Tamiya panel line scriber, and we're going to make several passes in both directions on each of the slat openings. We will then flip it over, and we'll make a few passes on each slat from the underside as well. Next, we're going to cut a thin strip of 600 grit sandpaper about the width of our slat opening, and we're going to use it to sand both sides of the slat to clean up any remaining debris. Now the slats are cleaner and more even. With the prep work done, we're going to lay down some primer. We're spraying Mr. Surfacer 1500 Black, cut 50-50 with Mr. Leveling Thinner. Mr. Surfacer has become my go-to primer because it always lays down flawlessly. The paint I'm using calls for a dark gray. I mixed a test batch of 3 parts Mr. Surfacer gray to 1 part black, and honestly, there was so little difference it wasn't worth the effort to custom mix a dark primer. I've already sprayed the inside of the model, and we're going to lay down about 3 coats of primer. I like to spray Mr. Surfacer around 20 psi. Now we're on to the second coat, and as usual, we want to make sure we get all those hard to reach and easy to forget spots all around the bottom, in the wheel wells, the headlight and grille areas, the hood slats, stuff like that. We're going to spray nice, even coats all the way down from the start to finish of the body. And then we're going to wrap this up with coat number 3. Spraying it just like we did coat number 2, nice, smooth, even coats. We've given the primer a couple of hours to gas off and cure up, and we've masked off several areas that we want to remain black. Now we're going to be moving on to the color, which is going to be Dodge High Octane Red from Gravity Colors. We're going to be spraying 3 coats of this, again at 20 psi, and I only recommend buying Gravity from the Spain site. The US site has a long history of not delivering paint for months, sometimes even over a year, and extremely poor customer service. As usual, we're going to start first with all those hard to reach, easy to forget spots, all the underhangs, all the openings, things like that. When we do start our main painting, we want to do smooth, even strokes. I start spraying before the body, and I hold the air in the paint down while I move all the way along the body and don't stop until I'm past it. This reduces the likelihood of sputtering and spitting. If there's a drop of paint on the end of the needle and the air blows it off as soon as I start, it blows off before the paint starts hitting the body. I also like to finish off each coat with a light mist of small circles, which helps to break up any tiger striping or visible lines in the paint from uneven passes and uneven overlap. And now we're on to our third and final coat of color. We're just going to keep doing our thing. Nice, smooth, methodical painting. Again, we've given our paint a couple of hours to gas off. Normally I wait about an hour, but when I'm doing extensive masking like these stripes, I like to give it extra gas off time so the paint cures up before I mask over it. We're spraying some of Alclad steel for these stripes, and I like to drop the air way down to around like 10 psi for this paint as it's super thin. If you look at their bottles, these Alclads are like 90% thinner, but it really is some beautiful paint. There are very few paints, in my opinion, that compete with Alclads on metallics. We're going to spray about 2 coats of the Alclad steel, technically about 2.5. We're going to start with a really light coat of the Alclad. If you go heavy on the first coat, there's a much greater chance you'll have some bleed through under the masking tape. The theory is that the light coat isn't enough to run under the tape, but will dry and form a seal, blocking a run from further coats. On the front end here, we masked each one of the front parts of that grill opening separately, and then masked over all of it together. This way, when we spray the front, we get nice clean stripes that go all the way back into the body, and we don't mess the body up with a lot of overspray. Before we spray our clear, we're going to give the body a quick brush down with this anti-static record player brush. It was about $10 on Amazon, and in my opinion, it does just as good, if not actually a better job than the $30 Tamiya brush, which I also have and have tried from experience. For clear, we're using the Gravity Color Spain 2K Clear, and I've gone ahead and masked off all the various areas where we don't want to get clear. We're going to spray 3 coats of the 2K. The first coat is going to be a very light coat, and then 2 more wet, heavy coats. And just like with the paint, we want to make sure we get all the hard to reach and easy to miss spots. And one of the big ones are these overhangs on the sides that are easy to miss if you're just spraying the car from the side. We're going to let that sit for about 10 minutes to get nice and tacky, and then we're going to move on to coat number 2. The theory is that when the 2K gets sticky, the next coat will stick to it better and be less likely to run, so we can spray a slower, heavy, wet coat and get a smoother finish. And now we're on to our third and final coat. Alright guys, it has been 24 hours since we sprayed the 2K. It is dry enough to touch and handle. I would not go sanding on it for another day or two. I will probably even put that off longer because I don't really like sanding and polishing, and I tend to procrastinate. But all in all, we are really nice on this clear coat job. This is one of the better clear coat jobs. I could have stopped at 2 coats. I really should have stopped at 2 coats, and I'll talk about that in a second. I went ahead and went to 3 because there's going to be some places that will definitely need a sanding. Specifically, that little spot of dust right there. That is the worst spot of dust on the entire clear coat job. It is a layer or 2 in, so it's definitely going to need some work. So I did want to put that 3rd layer on so I would have plenty of material to work with to sand that and try to flatten that out a bit. Our stripes line up really nicely. Those came out quite well. Everything's still nice and pretty much semi-gloss black where the plastics are, all the underside under here where we masked off. All that masking worked well. We got no bleed through. Even over here where it was kind of loose and I was worried about it, on this rear panel back here, that's all nice and clean as well. So yeah, I am really happy with this. There's very little dust in this. This is, like I said, this is probably one of my better clear coat jobs. And I really like the color combination. That really dark metallic red and those alclad steel, which is more like a dark metallic gray. That color combination turned out even better than I expected. I am very happy with that. I did mask off on these connection points. So I masked off up here, I masked up this under tray, just this bottom ledge and this point here, as well as, you know, the back side of these side skirts. I didn't want any 2K clear getting on any of the parts that have to connect with each other. My concern was because it's all it's a very tight fit in there, and I was concerned that if I did get 2K clear on these, that things won't sit right and it'll cause like really bad panel gaps or something. So all in all, it looks like it's going to do okay. I don't think we're going to have any major issues. So yeah, all in all, everything looks like it sits correctly. No major gaps. Everything looks like it's going to be all right. And I said I should have stopped at 2 coats. This was a lot tighter around this lettering on coat number 2, and it was pretty smooth. I very well could have stayed at 2 coats. Instead I sprayed 3, and now it's a little soft on the detail there, and that's not too bad. It did pull down quite a bit as it cured up. It pulled down a lot more than I expected, which is nice, but it could have been a little cleaner. There's a little dust under there, and that's probably not going to get sanded off. That is way too close to that detail, and I don't want to run the risk of sanding off all the clear and screwing up the paint there. But yeah, we have also gone in and on this back panel we just left it masted off, and that's still just the Mr. Surfacer Black. Mr. Surfacer Black is probably one of the nicest blacks if you're trying to simulate a black plastic. For semi-gloss black, this really is one of the nicer blacks, and I use it like paint quite frequently. But I went back in and I just did those tips with some Molotow. I use the little refill bottle. Yeah, it's really expensive. This is like a $30 bottle of paint, but I use literally 1 drop at a time. Just throw that drop on a piece of masking tape and dip in a toothpick and just go around those little details. And as long as you don't look at it hard, it shouldn't go gray, so nobody stare too hard at it. One of the things I don't like about Molotow is that it does not maintain a finish really well. If you touch it at all, it's going to go dull. But all in all, I think it should be safe right there. That's not something that you're going to handle a whole lot. So yeah, I mean, all in all, this came out really nice. Look at our mirrors here, those look good. I am really happy with how the paint job came out, and from here we have the interior and then final assembly. Honestly, I have some stuff painted up on the interior, not a whole lot painted up on the interior. I have the seats painted up. We'll talk to them when we get to the interior video, so stay tuned and catch us on the next episode. As for now, I am going to go ahead and wrap this one up. It's probably drawn on for quite a while. I haven't even started editing yet, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be a long video. So, as always, I would like to thank each and every one of you for hanging out with me and building with me, and I will catch you on the next one. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Also, feel free to leave comments, feedback, critique, or anything else in the comment section below. I enjoy interacting with all my viewers in the comment section and try to reply to all the comments I receive. If you want to catch future videos, please consider subscribing to my channel and make sure you click the bell notification icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. As always, thank you for watching, keep modeling, and have a great day.